Today we have a leg day, but this is not a quad day. This is an everything but the quads day. I usually just allocate all of my volume for my quads to one day, and then I give my hamstrings, my adductors, glute, and calves a different day. This is just how I prefer to do it. You don't have to do it that way, and if you really wanted to throw in like one other quad exercise on this day, it'd be absolutely fine. But this is just my preferred way of doing things. That way I can just fully focus on the quads when I want to focus on them, fully focus on these muscle groups when I want to focus on them, and put myself through a lot of torture. When I use this machine, I actually like to make it a little bit harder at the top of the portion of the movement, because that's where you're getting more length, and at more length, give a little bit more strength, but you also have the area where you're gonna get more growth. So I make it get easier as it gets to the bottom using the prime machine, simply because I'm not too worried about how hard I'm flexing at the bottom, more worried about getting really good tension at length. But as always, this is not me telling you can't do it another way. So if you prefer not to do it that way, that's perfectly fine. Come on. Oh, yeah. All right, should be good. Ooh. One set down, one more to go. Now we're going to move on to the sus machine. I know a lot of people don't work their adductors specifically, but I found that ever since I started working them outside of my pressing movement, that the insides of my legs just really filled out. And if you want that sweep in the middle, the adductors are what's gonna cause that. Now, that's not saying you have to do this, just what I do. When I was doing deep presses, which a lot of people do and will develop good adductors through, like I just wasn't developing my adductor. Now, when I walk around, my legs literally chafe. If I don't have something that goes between here, like if my underwear or whatever doesn't actually go all the way down, my legs just chafe while I'm walking. So this has worked really well for me, but do whatever the heck you want to do. Ooh. Feels like it's gonna tear by the end, but it's not, so don't worry. Develop your flexibility through this movement, make sure you get lots of length, and those partials at the end, absolutely killer. Next, we are going to move on to one of my more, I consider, underrated movements, which is partial RDLs on a Smith machine. Now, what I really like about this is it's completely stable, just focused purely on pulling, but I don't need to stand all the way up, because a lot of people will not like the fact that they can't stand fully up as comfortably with the Smith machine, but we're really trying to work the lengthen position more than anything else. So there is no real need to stand all the way up. As long as you're getting that length, getting it up to about the midway point, going back down, should be absolutely fine. Now, if you are not using straps on all of your pulling movements, do you really even care about your gain? But we're not trying to do a forearm movement here. We're not trying to do a grip movement here. We are trying to do a movement for the glute, and you do not want to be taking away anything from that. So even if your grip can handle it, it doesn't matter, because every other bit of muscle that you have to use in order to make this movement happen is going to be wasted energy away from the target tissue that you're actually trying to hit. So rather than trying to be hardcore, Mr. Well, I want forearm, just use the straps. Oh, I forgot. This happens when you use a really loose Smith machine. Man, these grips are tight. All right, how could I forget about that aspect? Okay, so you see how it's gonna pull it this way? Because of that, I'm actually gonna turn around and I'm gonna do the straps this way. Give you a nice view too at the same time. And that will keep me from accidentally re-racking while doing the move, hopefully. I mean, I like that the machine's well oiled. It is kind of annoying for this movement specifically. All right. Feels good, feels good. Now, if I'd only been doing one set of these, then I probably would go a little bit harder, maybe like try and get in a mile rep set or something. But I got one more set and I'll take that one just a little bit harder and maybe blow my head off in the process. Whew, I love RDLs. One of the other things I really like about these partial RDLs is you keep consistent tension on the glutes, which means that you actually fail much easier than you would if you were standing all the way up and taking a break. So I can use less weight and get the same amount of stimulus out of it as somebody who has to load on 6 plates and do it. Now, one of the other things that I find very useful for this is a lot of people will complain about their lower back being a problem when they try to do SLDLs or other things like that. And when you don't have to load the weight quite as heavy, it puts less load on the spine. So you got win-wins all around here. You cannot get this thing. These grips are so strong on here. Trying to, come on, come on. No, I can't get it tight. Come on. Oh gosh, this better get cut out. Otherwise it's gonna be the longest YouTube video of all time. That'll work. Okay. Getting a big booty today. Still got some shortened position work to do. So next we have calves. And this is probably the muscle group that people train wrong the most often. This is how they'll train their calves. They'll go like this, or they'll bounce in and like do this, or they'll even go like this, they'll do that, and then they'll go down, and then they'll do this, and like, no. If you want to grow your calves, I know my calves are not massive, but they were very much a genetic weak point, and now they're actually somewhat decent. But what you want to do is you want to load up very heavy relative to what you're capable of doing, and you want to spend 80 to 90% of your time in the stretch position. Now, when I get into the stretch position, I don't just let it stretch. I get into the stretch position and I activate at the same time. So it gets down to full length. I don't just like let my feet go completely. What I do is I get down there, but I still try and hold it. Kind of hard to describe because you are fully in the stretch position, but you're still like lightly pushing against it, I guess you could say. And that is how I've actually taken my calf up. What would they have been? Well, they were, yeah, it'd be 2 to 3 inches over the course of the last year. They've actually grown a ton. Even though they're not huge, for me, they're much bigger than they used to be. So if they're a genetic weak point for you, try training this way and see what happens. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, push. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, push. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, just like the delts, you don't need to spam calves. A few good sets a week, done with proper technique, and they'll grow. It's like any other muscle group. But definitely want to add a gym pin or something to the next set because I don't like going for that long. One of the things that people don't often factor into their training is psychological fatigue. And when your sets have to take like 2 minutes for you to reach failure, or like it just, the psychological fatigue and the drain that you get from that can actually impact the rest of your workout. That's why I prefer the lower rep schemes. That's why I prefer to not have to go up 20 to 30 reps or be holding things for a super long time. I would prefer to increase the weight, reach failure sooner. And that's why I've added on 45 onto here, because the last set took far too long and it's just not worth developing that overall fatigue. Not developing it, but it's not worth accumulating that fatigue when you could just increase the weight. So drop the pin or stay thin, am I right? All right, last exercise for the day. We can't forget that booty. Now, we know that a lot of muscle groups respond really well to longer length training. The glutes are no exception, but that doesn't mean they don't also respond really well to short position work. Studies, there was one actually quite recently that took a look at squat versus, I think it was squats to parallel or just below parallel, which is a pretty glute dominant movement, versus hip thrust. And the hip thrust gained the same, actually slightly more, I believe, for actual glute development. So don't neglect your short position glute movements if you want to have a big booty. And I definitely want a big booty. I feel like I could have done more. I'm going back in. Yeah, just got a big butt.